Ready back? This sitting is resumed.
Madam Deputy Speaker, recommittal of statements by ministers.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair. In a press conference held on 19th of September this year, the Honourable Prime Minister announced the implementation of several measures that are intended to support the work of the Barbados Police Service as it carries out its mandate of securing a safe Barbados. One of those law enforcement initiatives was the enactment of a new regime to regulate the use of tint on motor vehicles, which would see the prohibition of dark tints, which would obscure the view into a vehicle. There's been much public dialogue on the matter, and in response to several queries raised, I made it clear in a public statement that the measures will take effect from the 1st of January 2025. Madam Deputy Chairman, the necessary legislation to amend the Road Traffic Act, as well as the required regulations, have all been prepared, and the amendment to the Act has been laid in Parliament. This ministerial statement is to indicate to the country that matters relating to the acquisition of the best available tint meters are well in hand, and these tint meters have been ordered and are in fact en route to Barbados. However, inasmuch as they are not yet on the island, and given the inevitable challenges that are associated with the Christmas season in terms of shipping and the like, it has been decided to defer further action on the legislation until the meters are in hand. It is therefore expected that the legislation will be debated very early in January 2025, and the regulations will come into force immediately thereafter. While the legislation will be enacted in January of 2025 and will come into force when enacted, the regulations will still provide for a grace period of 3 months for persons to come into compliance with the law. I remind the country that this measure will not be a prohibition on the use of tint. It only seeks to do what is globally a commonplace measure, that is, the restriction of the use of dark tints on motor vehicles. I take this opportunity to remind the drivers and owners of motor vehicles in Barbados that these measures are intended to protect the interests of all Barbadians, and we look forward to their fullest cooperation in the new year as we work together to make the work of the Barbados Police Service easier and more effective.
Honourable Member.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we recommit 2 government notices.
Notices?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to give notice of a resolution to grant the sum of $2,888,465 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2024-2025 as shown in Supplementary Estimates Number 1, 2024-2025.
We revert to papers, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to command to lay the medium-term debt management strategy for fiscal year 2024-25 to 2026-27.
Yeah. Order number 3 resumed.
Honourable members, when the suspension was made, we were discussing order number 3, and to that we shall recommit. Honourable Member for Christchurch South.
Much obliged to you, Your Honor. Your Honor, when we went into recess, I had come to the point where we were speaking of government's promised expenditure to facilitate the movement to, and I quote, go green. And we had made the point that there is little connection between government's promise and government's activity, that government within the communities of this country seems to have gone right, and that the government is pursuing propaganda ahead of prosperity. So we will leave that. The public is a very good judge of these activities and the reasons for these activities. We had spoken of the promise of government to do something called regathering and to give to every month a theme. And that is the relevance of that reference is important because we had said that it will involve massive spending. And indeed, this is a program about spending. And we do expect that every month being attached to a parish, that the month of September will be significant. I think that is St. James, January, St. Lucy, and their theme is faith, and then you move to St. Peter, February, St. Thomas, March, April, St. Joseph, May, St. John, June, St. George, July, St. Philip. Lots of money is going to be spent. This document speaks more reliably as to government's true intent than the document which was brought here this morning. August will be St. Andrew, and the people of this country may come to understand why September will be very significant, since it may well be that one of the representatives in that parish will change by way of a by-election. Yes, that is September will be St. James, so that if the people will have their way, when the month of September comes in celebration of St. James, we may well find that one of the persons who now represents one of the three constituencies would have departed, and that when they're celebrating cricket, I won't give the gender of that member, but that member will no longer be among us, and the people will decide, I suspect early in the new year, who shall be the new representative for that portion of St. James, so that we expect great expenditures throughout this coming year, and even greater expenditures sometime early in 2025, when government will embark as a matter of highest priority on a political campaign to rescue that one of the 3 constituencies in St. James pursuant to the departure of the incumbent. Unless there is a change of mind within the government, these are the things that shall come to pass, so that the spending will relate not only to a gathering, but it will relate to a gathering of political energies to rescue one of the 3 St. James constituencies when that by-election is called. I'm waiting, ma'am.
Honourable member, will you please continue? I am listening very attentively.
Yes, you're listening to me attentively.
We all are.
And in the presence of the
You have the floor, sir.
expert on the standing orders, he will indicate to you that 33 sub-rule 6 is now breached by the various noises that I'm hearing from other honorable members while I'm speaking.
I'm not hearing the noises, sir. Sorry.
Anyhow, there shall be
Please
greater
continue.
noises
Please continue.
soon when that by-election is announced. I'm sorry that I had to make the announcement before other persons were given the opportunity to make the announcement, but it is upon us. And unless there's some substantial change of mind, you want to know how this relates to what is before us, but it will involve the spending of monies. And I will wish well for the person outgoing as he embarks, oh there, I wasn't supposed to mention the gender, but as he embarks upon a new life, we will wish him well. And now we will come back to government's promise in this document to enhance food production and food security. And we will say again that there's a dissonance between government's official promises and government's activities. And we say this morning, and we continue to say, that government's emphasis and government's priority is clearly on tourism. And we don't fight against that, but we've asked for diversification of the economy. And while asking for diversification of an economy, and while asking a government to pay attention to agriculture, the government continues to treat with the utmost contempt persons involved in agriculture. The esteemed governor of the central bank recently in a report said that agriculture is in decline, and that is contrary to what the Ministry of Agriculture had been telling this country for the last 2 years, including this year. And so I don't know what will be the theme of the honorable member for St. Philip South going forward, but I doubt that he will now wish to be heard contradicting the governor of the central bank, who has indicated to this country in writing in an official report that there's ruination and decline within the agricultural sector. And I don't wish the public to become tired of hearing me make a claim for fisher folk. But this is a claim that needs to be contextualized. And we must, those of us who hold prejudices against people based on their station in life and their location, their social location, we need to pause and quantify what are the contributions of these people who work in the agricultural industry, whether as workers on and off the land or workers on and off the sea. Their work brings considerable foreign exchange to this country. Their work provides considerable employment for the people of this country. And more importantly than foreign exchange and employment, their work feeds the people of this country. As I said before and I say again, you cannot discuss culture unless you discuss food, as one esteemed Barbadian writer says. If we have no food, we have nothing else. We have no culture. And this country must now be told that the agricultural worker, as that esteemed writer told us, is a cultural worker. A cultural worker to the extent that his labors are at the heart of culture, are at the heart of life, that they provide food. And while we have a minister of housing rampaging across this country, promising to plant cement on every agricultural spot, we have workers in agriculture and workers in aquaculture trying to feed the people of this country. And while massive concessions are given to those within the tourism sector, I said it last week and I'm going to say it again, we find a government having begrudging regard for the right of survival of those who work in agriculture, and this is confirmed by the governor of the central bank, who says that agriculture is in decline. No food, no culture. Nothing happens without food. And we have a government claiming that the war in Ukraine, as far away as Ukraine, that every Ukrainian soldier who loses his life in some way affects food security in this country. Well, if that is so, support the industry. And we repeat that there's no support, and where there is support, it is begrudging. That you have a multi-million-dollar industry destroyed by a hurricane. And we have every week, whether by media conference or in this place, we are finding ourselves having to defend the rights of those people for government support. And we are finding a government that is begrudging of their right to support. And we have people in this country claiming that they have no entitlement. We have people in this country claiming that they're beggars. They're not beggars. They are not beggars. We have thousands of people who form lines to the various fish markets across this country. It is not a ritual. It is a necessary act to feed this country. It is an industry. It must not be made marginal by government's attitude towards these people. They are people too, and I will represent them in here. And anybody who is tired of hearing me say that the agricultural and aquacultural workers in this country are entitled and deserving of support, they're going to have to continue to be tired. And I don't wish to bring it to this. But if others are getting support, give them some too. And if the sanitation workers in this country are in peril, I will defend them. And if the bus drivers are in peril, I will defend them. And if the nurses and doctors can't enjoy proper terms and conditions of service, I will defend them. And if the accountants losing their job because of a declining international business sector, I will defend them. Wherever there's government policy that causes suffering and hardship, mine will be a voice in defense of those who suffer. And so this is not any patronizing intervention into the lives of the fisher folk. This is a genuine plea to this government to show, to prove that you are what you say you are. And you've said from 2018 to the present that you care. And when a man says that he cares, it means that his bosom is filled with compassion. Where's the compassion? Why are people leaving the fishing industry today and going into itinerant employment at the side of the street selling clothes? Does this government know that that is happening? Because we're hearing that people can't fill out forms or that they did not have any insurance. But when we were feeding our bellies full of fish, we did not display these prejudices. So whether you're a nurse or an accountant, the voice of the opposition will be a voice in your defense of your right to economic survival, in defense of your right to professional survival, and I'm not going to leave it. A cause is not justified because it is a popular cause. A cause is justified based on its morality, and in this case, on its legality. But I've said I'm not going to argue the case in here. I'm not going to re-argue the case that government ought to have secured the people's votes properly. But that is the legal cause. That is the legal case. Where's the moral cause? A few days before Christmas, when the majority of people in this country are ready to enjoy merriment, there's an unhappy minority that have been promised $1,500 measly dollars. Said it last week, I'm not going to abandon them. If political popularity is to derive from popular causes, I'm sorry. This is a moral cause that merits governmental intervention, and I will not continue to hear a government accuse an entire sector of ineptitude simply because government is begrudging towards those persons based on social prejudices. And those social prejudices do not exist when we are granting concessions to people to change the art on their walls and call it furnishing. Those social prejudices do not exist when we are permitting people concessions to renovate premises that have over 5 to 10 years gained them millions of dollars in financial profit. The cause will not be abandoned. And if it is an unpopular cause, still it will not be abandoned. And those who wish the cause to be abandoned, I commend to them the verse. First they came. They came for the communists, and I was not one. They came for the socialists, and I was not one. They came for the trade unionists, and I was not one. They came for the Jews, and I was not one. And they came for everybody. And I kept silent. They kept silent. They came for all of them, and I kept silent. Then, at the end of the verse, he tells you they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Who dares to speak for the poor and the suffering in this country? Who dares to speak for the middle-income people in this country? Whose suffering is disguised by an exterior, in many cases, of false prosperity? A lot of us are suffering too. A lot of us are paying the bills with an exterior of dignity. But alas, Your Honor, it is only an exterior. Because tomorrow does not promise much. And those messages are transmitted to our children at the age of 13 and 14 and 15 who are promising their parents that they will not live in this country. So amidst all the pretty talk, amidst these documents that speak prettily, there's a harsh reality out there that is attending the life of the working class and the middle class in this country. And this government, I can't come in here and ask this government to pay attention to it, to pay attention to these classes of persons. And I'm not here to excite rebellion. I am here in search of justice for the people of this country. And if you want to enhance food production and food security, show that that is your intent. We held a media conference a few weeks ago, and a young lady, a young vendor of the Bridgetown terminal got up and gave testimony and said that she has been looking for land for a while because she wants to grow her own vegetables. She wants to grow her own produce for sale. And Your Honor, you know, she said something that I had never imagined. In one of the cases I did, we dealt with WTO, World Trade Organization, and the neoliberalist project, which encourages free trade. And we were assuming that all the produce from the larger countries, based on economies of scale, would be cheaper. And she introduced us to the reality that that is not true. She reminded this country, through a humble media conference, that the agricultural produce from the Caribbean is cheaper than the agricultural produce from the United States, the great United States of America, which in many cases subsidizes its agricultural industry. We don't know that. We don't know that. And that humble lady introduced us to that reality. She works in the fish market, and she wants to expand her enterprise by gaining a piece of land. And rather than this government subdivide the agricultural lands in this country for the sake of small entrepreneurs, this government pursues a path of implanting cement and photovoltaic systems on agricultural land at the expense of this country's prosperity. Prosperity is not only about foreign exchange. Prosperity is about the local right of the people to eat the food that is grown in this country, and this government's policy is preventing people from growing their own food in this country. And that is why I say there's a dissonance between the declaration of this document and government's day-to-day policy. Young people in this country who wish to make a career in agriculture are being frustrated by the misguided policy of this government. I cannot say on the eve of Christmas that this is a government whose breast is filled with the milk of compassion. It is not. And ours is a plea for this government. As I said earlier, and as I said a few weeks ago, walk to the land, return to the land, and have the people behind you, the people who are genuinely interested in revisiting those former plantation lands as owners, small owners in agriculture. That is a noble project. That is a project which will gain this government's support. But the project which alienates this government from the support of the people is a project which is anti-people. And I am saying that the failure and refusal of this government to support the fishing industry and to support agriculture is anti-people. And if you don't believe, government, that your popularity has declined as a result of your deliberate and daily policy, you are living with the ostrich, with your head firmly planted in the ground. And I won't say where your tail end is located, but expect some lashes on your tail end when the time comes. Whether in the parish of St. James next year or whenever the other time comes. That is not a threat, nor even a promise, but that is an undertaking that this voice will be joined by many other voices across this country to remind this government that dictatorship is not the form of government that this country has ever wanted and encouraged. We need a return to democracy. We need a return to the land. We need a return of the people who wish to do so to return to the lands of this country. And to return to the lands of this country in agriculture, and to return to the seas that surround this country in aquaculture. That is what this country needs. And as I've said, without being anti-tourism, and indeed we are pro-tourism, but let us also be pro-agriculture. That is not a difficult message to understand. And as I have said, history has brought us to this juncture at which we have seen the decline of the system of the plantation. We may reject the plantation, but we embrace the land. And the young people of this country have asked the government, I beg your pardon, to jointly with the people embrace the land. And the government has refused. For the sake of a photovoltaic system, which is not working in the interest of the people. And they have rejected the land for the sake of housing, which they claim will be for the people. But I have other news to deliver to the people of this country. And in delivering that news to the people of this country, I will come to the next of government's claimed priorities. Permit me, ma'am, to read, and I quote, building resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy to drive sustainable capital formation and provide housing to large numbers of persons waiting on housing solutions. This is no repeat of what I said earlier this year in a budget reply. Treat this, Your Honor, as an updated report as to what is happening with housing in this country. I quote again, government's official document, permit me. Building resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy to drive sustainable capital formation, and then the word "and" appears. That is disjunctive, so that there are two priorities here: to build houses that are energy efficient, in other words, that can provide their own energy. I'm coming to that. And the second portion of that objective is to provide housing to large numbers of persons waiting on housing solutions. 2 weeks ago, I stood up in here and I challenged the Honourable Minister of Housing, the representative, the member for St. George South, to tell the people of this country in the aftermath of the Hope fiasco. I challenged the Honourable member to say on that date how many houses were occupied at the infamous and now failed Lancaster project. He said 56. And I rejected his offer to get in his car and go down there. Apart from the fact that he's a very poor driver, I had no intention of going down there with him. And Your Honor, I went. And the security guard was no longer in the guard hut. They were stopping people from coming in. And some persons had moved in, and I spoke to those persons. And on that date, the honorable member disclosed to this Parliament, within his oath to tell the truth, that on that date, 56 persons, well, not 56 persons, 56 houses were occupied. I will not offend the standing orders of this Parliament, but we did a count, and that is all I will leave with the people of Barbados. The people of Barbados can drive into that community and ask whether 56 persons were living or 56 houses were occupied on the date in question. I leave that. That is not at the center of my updated report card. It is a project conducted under this thing called HOPE. And HOPE, a very optimistic name. I invite the honorable member to correct me if I'm wrong, but it is an acronym which derives home ownership providing energy. When I went on my trip to Lancaster, which he calls the University of Vespera Gardens, and the honorable member told this Parliament that they called it the University of Vespera Gardens because they learned so much. And at the time of that debate, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we asked the honorable member how you could commit 60,000, not 60,000, I beg your pardon, $60 million to a housing project as part of an experiment. That whoever got the work down there was experimenting. They were in the process of learning. It was a learning exercise. You mean you didn't take up the people's $60 million and give to someone in whom you had confidence that he knew how to build a house? And the evidence that those persons or that person who built those houses exists today in the fact that they are workmen down there receiving taxpayers' money to correct the bad work that was done. People of Barbados, here and abroad, that there is no accounting for that $60 million. And further, this government continues to pay workmen. While we speak at this very minute in this Parliament, there are workmen down there being paid to correct the bad work. But the honorable member calls it the University of Vespera because they went there to learn. And in case you're curious, Your Honor, I'm going to tell you now how much those workmen are being paid to cover up government's embarrassment, to cover up the scandal that has been HOPE. Home ownership providing energy. I'm going to come to that aspect very shortly. But many of us would wish that we were a carpenter or a mason who would receive $3,000 a week, and I'm happy for them. They are almost as important as the agricultural people. They feed us, but these people house us. Food, shelter, and clothing are the basic requirements of any civilized human being. So the artisan is important. But the artisans at Hope are being paid $3,000 a week every week in this country, not because their skills are any greater than anybody else's. And perhaps they deserve it. It's about time. It's about time that somebody hits the jackpot. But they're being paid that as part of government's cover-up of the scandal of a failed project on which $60 million was spent for bad work. And the people in this country now need to know that a failed project is continuing to receive taxpayers' money, and that artisans, and I congratulate them, are down there being paid $3,000 a week to cover up a scandal, to cover up bad work, to cover up government's mismanagement and maladministration of the taxpayers' money. But congratulations, I say, to every artisan who is down there receiving $3,000 a week to fix the loss of $60 million in taxpayers' money. I bring that information not only to the people of Barbados, here and abroad, but I bring that to several of these parliamentarians in here who don't know. They will know now. And they can make private inquiry. You know, ma'am, it is quite possible that even the Minister of Housing may not know. Even the Minister of Housing may not know that his ministry is paying $3,000 a week to artisans to cover up bad work. Now, I don't have a problem with that. But if you're paying an artisan $3,000 a week to finish a house, and the price of that house is to be based on cost, what will be the price of that house? And we know, the people in this country know, that they are not going to sell those houses to anybody based on the cost of materials and labor. The cost of labor has gone through the roof. It has become astronomical. And government is covering up a scandal. Government is covering up its embarrassment in having wasted $60 million of the taxpayers' dollars and are now adding hundreds of thousands of dollars more, possibly millions, to make good a failed project that they called a University of Vespera. And they call it a university because they went in and tried and they failed the tests in construction. And where are the taxpayers? Where are the taxpayers? Where are the taxpayers who are called upon to celebrate the arrival of 26 garbage trucks? Where are we? I come to the aspect of that project in accordance with what is before this House today, that this government promised to build, and the favorite word appears, resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy. Those houses that are occupied at Lancaster were all supposed to have on their roofs photovoltaic systems so that the light and power bills would have been low. Any of the members can go down there, even in the car, badly driven by the Minister of Housing, and come back and tell this House and the people of this country how many of those houses have photovoltaic systems on the roofs. The only ones that carry photovoltaic systems are the show houses, I think about 3 of them. So that another aspect of that project has failed. That $60 million was not enough. The expenditure of $60 million was not enough to complete that project according to its original design. And that those persons are down there paying the high electricity bills as any of the rest of us, so that the renewable energy aspect of the project has failed. Home ownership providing energy has become home ownership providing disappointment. Yes, I'm still talking. I heard you. Still talking. And you better take your seat.
Please, please, please. Continue.
You didn't hear any ask me ask
No,
if
sir,
I
I
still
don't hear
talking?
this, sir. I'm listening to you attentively, please.
Well, since he came, I'm going to ask him to get comfortable. Because I'm going to make him uncomfortable with these disclosures.
Please continue, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Home ownership providing energy has failed. And it has failed he or she who voted to expend $60 million down there. And it has failed those who now live in the houses. They don't have any alternative energy package within those houses. And I am not deviating from what is before the House today. I'm not deviating from this resolution. Because this resolution, unread by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, made direct reference to building resilience in the housing market in conjunction with renewable energy. That was at the heart and horizon of the Hope experiment. It has failed. Honourable Member for St. George North and Minister of Housing, where is the renewable energy component of the housing stock badly built and now being repaired at Lancaster? I was interrupted by points of order when I first spoke of hope. I was interrupted this morning, and I invite any interruption now to tell me and to tell the people that what I'm saying is false. Even the people who live at Lancaster, some of them live in disappointment today that it is a failed project, except that they remain grateful that a house that may well have cost in excess of $1 million is sold to them for far less than that. Is it $300,000? What a marvelous thing when you can buy a house for $300,000 that costs a very generous government $1 million, according to conservative estimates. And the Honourable Member for St. George South can get upon a point of order and deny that there are workmen down there. I'm going to repeat it, because when I first said it, I was unable to see his face. And now that I'm seeing his face, I will ask him to rise on a point of order and deny that there are workmen down there receiving $3,000 a week to cover up a governmental scandal. But I won't sit, because he is not rising on any point of order. He knows that what I'm saying is the truth. And his silence is acquiescence in the truth that I speak on that matter, and indeed on every other matter. I don't come here to mislead nor deliberately mislead. As I said, sometimes we're wrong. All human beings have a right to be wrong, except that this government does not understand that. And that sometimes I will not be accurate. But this omniscient government, so omniscient that they spent $60 million in taxpayers' money, they are never wrong. And so, Your Honor, I make that as an updated report on what is hope. And do you know, ma'am, and I'm going to repeat this, do you know, ma'am, that while the people of Barbados are waiting for an investigation into hope, the government is still doing business with hope? Do we know this? Did we believe as Barbadians that the activities of Hope would have been suspended and that it was the decent thing to do, and that the government would have suspended the activities of Hope in the aftermath of the expenditure of $60 million. And the minister said in here a few weeks ago that they're still doing business with Hope. Well, I asked the minister if Hope is still active at Lancaster, or if the amount of $3,000 being paid to the artisans is being paid out of the resources of the National Housing Corporation. And if it is not being paid out of the resources of National Housing Corporation, is it being paid out of the considerable resources of Hope? And if the full $60 million have been expended, is Hope being voted new monies by this government? Has Hope received a new injection of monies by the government? All these are questions. All these are questions that need to be asked before the event in St. James next year, if they go through with it. If they gird their loins for that by-election next year, and if it is now decided by this public disclosure that they could ungird their loins and keep the member in office for a little longer, he's not the first one that they chased away. But that is to digress. That is to digress. And I shan't digress anymore. Those are the questions that we legitimately ask without a point of order. In denial? In denial? There has been no denial of what I have asserted over the last 15 minutes. I move on to the next of government's budget policy priorities. They promise to boost export capacity of traditional and non-traditional goods and services. The honourable member stood up in here this morning and spoke for about an hour and gave this country no detail as to what are these traditional and non-traditional goods and services. He having not said, neither can we say. We are in opposition, we are not the government. It is the government's obligation to dissect pretty language and to say what it means. And to tell the people that what they say they mean and that they mean what they say, but that is not the kind of government we have running this country. They promised to develop a life sciences park as part of a critical trust to build out the bioeconomy. I would invite the honourable member in his wrap-up to say what that is about. I know what it is about, and I know what is going on, and I know the work that is going on, and I am not here to deny the government any of its credits, and so I will allow the member in his wrap-up to speak of this life sciences park. It's not for me to do. But moving on to the next priority, the government says it will establish a heritage district as a boon to development of the heritage economy. When you were a little lass, your beloved Prime Minister at the time declared a considerable portion of the East Coast to be a part of some national heritage. You no longer are that little lass, Your Honor. You now sit high in the parliament. And you have reached the point, Your Honor, where you have seen the desecration of what your beloved Prime Minister at that time and his administration declared to be a park within the national heritage. You are now seeing its desecration along the East Coast. To the protests of Barbadians across this country, this government is either directly or indirectly involved in construction of properties and buildings which will exclude Barbadians from access to portions of those lands which fall within the Park of National Heritage. That is the reality. So that is why I say that this government is the chief industrialist in this country in the production of sweet talk. It sounds very sweet here. Sounds very sweet, and it reads very sweetly that you're establishing a heritage district as a boon to development of the heritage economy. And a few weeks ago, Barbadians were down there protesting that they no longer had access to cherished and treasured areas of land which had been used, passed, repassed, and bypassed by generations of Barbadians. Yet this government uses the word heritage. No, it cannot. This government has lost the moral right to speak on heritage. This government is not only favoring those who are already highly favored by financial circumstances, but this government is denying the people of this country access to areas of heritage. And we come to the last of the promises in this section of the document. Created a balance sheet of underutilized assets in a soon-to-be-created Barbados Legacy Fund. Well, we had a housing credit fund, $60 million, that's gone. They will at some point in time, if they feel that we are deserving, we as lowly citizens, all of us, if they determine that we are entitled to hear about this Barbados Legacy Fund and how much money it contains, and who manages it, and who will have the authority to pay it out, and whether it will be for friends, privileged families, or favorites, give us some information on this so-called Barbados Legacy Fund. This morning, I told this Parliament that a major crisis in this country's history since independence is with us at present. And I told this Parliament that the crisis of crime is the worst crisis this country has experienced since independence, since 1966. And I told this Parliament before, and I say it again in here today, that while you don't blame government for every act of criminal wrongdoing, you also say that a government has a public responsibility using the agencies at its disposal, and those two major agencies are the Cabinet and the Parliament. The Cabinet deals with day-to-day policy, the Parliament passes the law. And I have previously accused this government of coming in here at my invitation to strengthen and to make more strict a Bail Act, and I accused the government then, and my accusation continues today, that the new Bail Act is cosmetic. It has done nothing except to add more words and less meaning. More words and less meaning. And I accused the government at the time of exporting its legislative responsibility, its responsibility to pass law that will arrest crime, no pun intended. I accuse the government of exporting that responsibility to the other arm of the state, the judiciary. And to say, well, y'all fix the problem out there. The problem can be fixed at the level of the cabinet if the cabinet has the will. I accuse this cabinet of not having the will to deal with this severe crisis of crime that now afflicts this country. I charged the government then with a responsibility through this parliament, pursuant to cabinet intervention and policy declaration, to bring anti-gang legislation to this place. As has been done in Jamaica, Trinidad, and other islands of this Caribbean, this government will be called upon to give account to the people of this country as to why they decided not to pass a law that has been proved effective in other countries. They will answer that question, and grievously will they answer it. Because grievously, this country is enduring not only a period of crime, but a nature of crime which reveals itself in the most sinister ways. And the people of this country know. And the government wants to say that it does not know. And the government wants to say that it does not know what is the solution to the kind of nasty crime that now afflicts this country. When every Tom, Dick, and Harry at every street corner and in every rum shop, and not only there, in every church pew, people now know details about criminal wrongdoing in this country. People understand the locus of crime in this country. People understand where crime in this country is rooted. They understood it in Jamaica and Trinidad, and they passed anti-gang legislation. I'm not the government. Let the government claim ignorance. Let the government continue to claim ignorance. Maybe we are insulated. Maybe as parliamentarians, we are insulated from the high incidence of crime. Maybe we are privileged. Maybe we are. Maybe we are. I am not. I know I'm not. I know that I am as vulnerable as the other man out there. A man got shot out there with a stray bullet one night, straight through his head, and he died. I drive out here every night. Where is my stray bullet? Or will my bullet be stray? On that I say no more. I am as vulnerable as the other man. And I will say more on that in future. I won't say it now. But this job in this location is not without its hazards. I have seen expressions of character assassination right here in this place. On that, I will say no more. On that, I will say no more. I don't care how much they interrupt me. I knew that some would present themselves and breach the standing orders of this parliament to try to interrupt me when I started to speak on crime and its locusts. I knew it. I knew it. But there will come a time and there will be a place when I will tell certain truths. But not today. Not today. But I have asked this government.
You are paying attention to the asides.
I am not paying attention to the,
listening.
not asides, it is in plural. One person is now so agitated that he tries to shout me down on the issue of crime. And his colleagues are silent. And I don't regard it as any coincidence that it comes from him. That is no coincidence. Keep him quiet.
You mean the honourable member, sir?
Yes,
All
the honourable
members
member.
in here, please.
Yes, the honourable member
could you
must
continue?
learn to keep quiet. And if these topics cause him personal tribulation, leave the chamber. Go and cry somewhere else.
Honourable member, I don't hear the asides. Will you continue,
Go and
please?
shed his tears elsewhere. Don't shed his anxieties at my expense by trying to shout me down. Because a time is coming when I will say what I know. All right. All right. Don't do that.
Please
do not
come.
do that.
Honourable member, please.
Do not do that.
Please continue with your
Look,
discussion,
Your Honor,
sir.
I'm not going to call his name nor title for the public to know who he is. I am going to be that kind to him, but tell him that when I am on certain subjects and his heart is troubled, get up and go outside and shed some tears.
Honourable member, please, will you continue
I am
your
trying.
discussion and take out the personal components
trying, ma'am.
of what you're saying? Can you move on, please?
You dare me?
I am not hearing the asides, sir, please. If I hear the asides, I will make the ruling. I am hearing you loud and clear.
You're hearing me loud and clear.
I have been all day.
I am hearing him loud and clear too. And on the subject of crime, his heart is troubled. Let not your heart be troubled.
Neither be afraid. Please.
Neither be afraid. What is he
Please, but I
afraid
don't
of?
want you to be afraid either, because we are
Why
not.
he
We are
don't come to
all
Sunday
in
school with
here
us?
as a people, working towards the same task of serving the people of Barbados.
You hear them?
So please continue. They have the right to say that.
They have a right to.
I'm not
no,
hearing
they
their
don't have that
sides.
right. I beg your pardon, ma'am.
I'm not hearing their sides.
I
sir.
am hearing
So,
them.
but you're hearing, but you're not ruling.
My
So
ears
would
are
you
better
please
than yours,
continue
perhaps.
in the light that you've been on for quite a while, and I'm not
Yes.
depriving you of that privilege. Just continue on the trajectory you're on.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
let us please move
You like
on.
the trajectory. And I was
I'm not
speaking-
telling you I like it. If I were in my seat, I will not tell you that. So therefore, let us please continue in faith and the camaraderie that is desired at this time of the year called Christmas. Please, go on, sir.
I spoke to a silent chamber all afternoon. I invited the honourable member for St. George South to correct me. And in his silence, he was saying I was correct. And as soon as I start to talk about crime, in walks.
Honourable member, please. Everyone in here has the opportunity to represent their interests, the ministries, and the people. Go on, sir, where you are discussing, and leave that alone. I do not hear their sides.
There are no gorillafants in here, you know. So
What
when
do you
I speak, whoever thinks he is a gorillafant, he still has to keep quiet.
I am the gorilla front right now.
No, man.
So will you please go on, sir? Please. You've gone on extensively and we're listening. Please continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I wouldn't ask for him to be put out because I want him to hear what I'm saying, even at the expense of his comfort. And he is anticipating what I will say now.
The honourable member.
Oh, yes.
We are all
The
honourable
the
members.
Yes.
Yes, please.
We must not deny him his title.
Yes, please.
His title is honourable.
And I will not allow him to deny you yours either.
No, indeed
Or
not.
any other honourable member.
Indeed not.
So let us do it. I've told you before and I've told the others. the public is listening.
Yes.
We are the ones who are setting the examples.
Yes.
We're gonna hear the little asides, but we cannot let them cause us to be distracted, especially if we're making points that we want the rest of the other honorable members and the public to hear.
Wendy,
Listen and internalize if necessary. So, sir, will you continue
Yes,
the
thank you, ma'am.
presentation?
when the expert on the standing orders returns to this chamber, I will ask him to send a note across there and tell him that
Well,
there's a
you will
roll
do
call.
that. You will do that when
Yes,
the honorable
yeah, the
member
expert will
is
speak
here.
to him.
But right now, I am filling that void. And then when
Yes.
that happens and he allows it,
Yes.
then that is his ruling.
Yes.
I cannot rule for him, he can't rule for me.
Yes.
But as long as I'm sitting here, we're going to respect each other on the sides of this honorable chamber.
Yes.
And we will move forward with respect to be able to explain, discuss, share, whatever aspects of it will be. So let us please continue. As we know, we have all the years. We're going to keep the standard high. Go on, sir. Honorable member.
I'm obliged to you, ma'am. Let us leave that.
Yes, please.
Right. And let us hope that he mends his ways. I continue. Now, I was at the point where some of us became uncomfortable, but I'm not here. I am not here to comfort the disturbed. Maybe even I am here to disturb those who are comfortable in an environment that is volatile. And I will bring this country, in spite of the glossy readings in this document, to a recognition that this document has said nothing about how government intends to spend its money to arrest, pardon the pun, the outbreak of crime in this country. And we've had to depend on one of the popular newspapers to highlight what has been happening in this country. And we were in shock. Peace and freedom-loving people in this country were shocked when they bought that paper on that Friday in question and saw 4 young men regaling its front page, speaking of a relationship with the government and saying that the government had entered into an agreement with them in Barbados that we love so much, on this cherished land, honorable member. And those 4 young men were saying that they kept their side of the bargain. And honest fisher folk can't get a cent. And the people working in the administration of the public service can't get their jobs back. And the accountants who used to be working with the international business companies that left cannot find a job except that they may go to Canada or the United States or Britain and find one now. Good, honest, decent people in Barbados who did no wrong, not even any wrong to the government, were not complaining on the front page of the paper. And some 4 fellow citizens, they must be given their title, they're citizens. And they are fellow citizens. And they came on the front page of a paper to complain that government, and I'm going to use plain language now, there are no tricks in plain and simple faith, Shakespeare. And they came to complain that government owed them money for keeping the peace. And the nation could not understand it. And when I say the nation, I don't mean with a capital N. The nation, the people of this nation could not understand that this was happening on a Friday, a day of the week when we were supposed to be settling in to happy weekends. And you know, up to now, this government has not told the people of this country how much money it gave them? This government was paying people to keep the peace and underpaying police officers who keep the peace. And underpaying the adjunct police officers who also keep the peace. And there are many police officers in this country, not only are they underpaid, but they are not promoted according to their skills, talents, and experience, because we are weighted under by a colonial police system that denies them promotion. So we are treating policemen in this country. And for citizens, I won't abuse them. Come on the front page of a Friday newspaper, possibly the most popular edition. Perhaps this Sunday one is more popular. But there's a reason why they placed them in Friday, because they wanted maximum publicity for this public complaint against a government who they claim was refusing to support them. In case anyone thought that I was going to say government was supporting crime, I did not say that. I say that government was supporting them based on what they said. But if you're supporting them financially, and if you can't give the fisher folk to this day $3 million, did this government pay $7.5 million? This government, yes, this government. Did this government pay $7.5 million to a ministry to pay to fellow citizens who were complaining that government was in breach? And when was this treaty? When was this contract made between government and these citizens? And when was it made? And I'm going to speak legally now. When was it made at a consideration of possibly $7.5 million? And for what period was this $7.5 million paid? In this unholy treaty. Did this parliament condone it? Was a resolution brought to this parliament, as was the resolution brought today by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central? Did the public know that we were paying these fellow citizens? Points of order. Points of order! Points of order! Why the silence, government? Points of order, let me hear them. Let the people of Barbados hear that I am wrong in saying that this government was paying an element of fellow citizens, taxpayers' money. And let this government rise on a point of order to deny that the payment thus far had been in the amount of $7.5 million, while you paid the fisher folk $3 million. Points of order. The expert is absent, but we want some points of order. Clarify. Clarify, honourable members. Elucidate, honourable members. Accuse me of misleading the public, honourable members. Nary a word. But the front page of the Nation spoke volumes as to the activities of this government in the lives of fellow citizens. The effrontery, though. The effrontery. The brazen disregard for standards. The brazen disregard for a government that they feel that they can drag a government's name publicly into disclosure of an alliance in which they were paid taxpayers' money in this republic. In this republic, without a Republican constitution complete. Everything is incomplete. And that alliance was also incomplete, and that's why they came to complain. And we have unemployed people in this country suffering. And fellow citizens. A group of fellow citizens were demanding their monies. I ask the people of this country, what moral judgment now can you make of this government? What moral judgment can you make of this government? And if there's any member who wishes to distance himself from that arrangement that government made, do so now. Points of order. Make your points of order now, or be fixed with collective responsibility for the action of having given comfort to an element of fellow citizens who feel that they now have the moral right to demand that the taxpayers' money be paid to them. Points of order. Points of order, ma'am. They're dead. They're sleeping. Are they ashamed? Well, the laughter from one says that he is neither asleep nor ashamed. But I will leave that topic, because that topic represents a blot on public affairs in this country that those fellow citizens felt that they could come on the front page in full view of the public, no faces hidden. Points of order. Was it $7.5 million or was it $17.5 million? Did I misread? Was my information correct? And since the story was published, have they received more? We don't know what is the travel bill, so why should we know what is the bill for them? They're not telling the people of Barbados anything. They don't tell us anything. And were it not for that front page, people in this country would have doubted that a government would reduce itself to those transactions, but then this is a transactional government. And any man who believes, or put differently, anytime the government believes that it has lost the support of any of its former supporters, open a transaction and reward him. And he doesn't have to be a high priest, nor does he have to be a decent working man or woman. He can be engaged in nefarious activity. Even for him, there's a transaction. Points of order. Points of order. How am I misleading the public? Point of order. But I have no doubt that the silence would indicate that there are those who will not take collective responsibility, because it is quite possible that some who sit in this chamber as parliamentarians do not know the numbers. And quite possibly, even they do not know that this transaction was made. Points of order. Not a word, because some of them do not know. That is how this government is managing its business. And worse, that is how this government is managing the people's money.
Points of order. Well, I spoke earlier this morning about this temporary intervention of a football tournament, which was supposed to solve all the young people's problems in this country. I came in here a few months ago, last year to be precise, and saw some members gleefully, oh, I want my mini stadium too. I want mine. Try and bring a mini stadium up by me, because I will be boosted and my community is going to look better than your community. And there was a rivalry. And the word, I think, was that there were 11 mini stadia to be built. And being at that time the least of the apostles, I said, boy, you're not getting any. And you, ma'am, I think by then you had departed from the Thursday club, so I figured the honorable member for St. Thomas, she's not getting any either. And I looked down the pecking order, and I knew those who were going to get and those who were not going to get. And I said, well, that's life, that's politics. Some are called. Help me, honorable member for Christchurch West, and few are chosen. Many are called and few are chosen. Point of order again, ma'am. I asked the honorable member for Christchurch West. Yeah, but he is a church goer. I don't want you in the house of the Lord. I beg your pardon? No. Not one of those said a word when I was on the previous topic. But they're out of the blocks now and they're gone again. So that when I heard of these mini stadia, 11 of them, I said, well, and the government can write their notes. The Minister of Sport is here. Write your notes, my friend. That some of us have gone to other countries and seen mini stadia. And a mini stadium at least would be a running track. 2, if you have the money, or if you didn't give the money to the 4 men, the 40 men, it looks like. If you didn't give the money to them, perhaps you would have had some to spend on a track. 3 lanes at least. And a sand pit. And a little football field in the center. I went to a facility on Sunday with an artificial surface. I'm not going to say where it is, but it is quite easy to do these things. Artificial turf, surrounded by a 2 or 3 lane track, so that when the talented child goes home on evenings, 3:30, 4 o'clock, he has about 2 hours in the sunlight to run. And you produce your athletes. You don't have to send Shada Williams to Jamaica to bring her home in the hope that you could get photo opportunities with her, photo opportunities that you don't deserve for her hard work. And you know how many good athletes we have in this country that will never come to success internationally? St. Lucia, Grenada. It's not an accident, you know. There's talent in every one of these islands. We used to be the world champions in cricket, an international sport. But opportunity, and we must give opportunities to our young athletes. And so when this government, as part of a developmental plan, a good and progressive developmental plan, told the people of this country and told some of my colleagues, parliamentary colleagues, that they were getting mini stadia, the government ought to have kept its promise and built mini stadia. But I woke up one morning and a friend of mine called me from St. Philip North. He and I watched cricket at St. Catherine. We don't watch cricket at Ellerton. And he told me, point of order, ma'am. He couldn't raise his voice on the previous topic. He could not raise his voice, but he's happy now. He built the mini stadium, by the way. He built the mini stadium. Ma'am, have you seen any of them? Not a track. No improvement to the field. No football field. No basketball court, if there were not one before. But importantly, no track, because you ought to have had a track around it to constitute it properly as a mini stadium. And Bayfield has the space for that track. And the little boy from Bayfield lost the opportunity to go home on evenings and run on a track. And if he wanted a track, he had to catch 2 buses to get to the Usain Bolt complex. And when the long-promised stadium is finished, he would have to go down there. But to avoid that, they could have given the children a track on which to run. But they misled the people of this country about this mini stadia. You're not going to allow me to say foolishness? No, you're not. So I have to come up with a different word. But they misled the people. The 13-year-old boy from Bailey's or St. Catherine into believing that he was going to get a mini stadium. And now the people of Barbados know that what constitutes a mini stadium is an expensive fence. An expensive fence. If we must die, let it not be like hogs hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, where around this bark the mad and hungry dogs making their mock at our accursed lot. You know, whenever I see the fences, Claude McKay comes to me. That poem, If We Must Die, that they have built fences around the people's open recreational area. Bayfield has been open for many years. The best playing fields in this country, the most salubrious playing fields, are open. They are an organic part of the community. There is no atmosphere of exclusion. Blending pasture, they put one around there too? Or are they frightened to go up there? I don't know if they're afraid of the honourable member for St. Michael East, because when he starts to talk, they get scared. He unburdened himself about the University of Vespera Gardens. Man, I enjoyed every minute of it. He was at his eloquent best that day here. But they punished him. They punished him. It was unjust punishment. If we must die, let it not be like hogs hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while around this bark the mad and angry dogs making their mock at our accursed lot. That is what the people of these communities have been reduced to. Rather than give the people a track to run around, they pin them in within an inglorious spot. Not in preparation for athletic expression, but in preparation for next year. Facts. Food and facts. Facts and food. Let the people of Barbados understand this government's agenda. That the government was not interested in creating any mini stadia. The government was preparing grounds of entertainment for its friends, family members, and the third F, I will not alarm you, favorites. So even at that level, there was misallocation of government funds. Even at that level, this government could not be candid with the people of Barbados and ask any of them in this government whether they're satisfied that they now have mini stadia. Not one of them has one. Bayfield only looks different because it looks worse for a fence. I'll go to Blenheim and see if there's a fence up there. I'm not going to compromise the honourable member for St. Michael East into having any private conversation with me, and then he gets punished. I am going to pass up there the same way I passed through Lancaster. I am going to pass up by Blenheim if we leave here early enough and see if they have a fence up there too. But the people of Barbados need to know how this government is spending its money and calling it mini stadia. And then we come to this football tournament. The Prime Minister's Cup. The Prime Minister's Cup. Now, after the enthusiasm of the Prime Minister's Cup, you know, it puts a heavy burden on the Barbados Football Association to have men play in an amateur tournament based on community pride, because we have now accustomed them to playing for money, even if it is $75. I don't know what that is going to do for them nor their self-esteem. But we're on the theme of community development. What is it going to do for them? And how does that tournament burden the Barbados Football Association as it tries to manage an amateur tournament? Do they also expect financial reward? Will they give of their best for free? Or has that tournament in effect destroyed an enterprise which is an amateur tournament of the Barbados Football Association, which has been going for years and years? Weymouth Wales, Everton, Beverly Hills, Black Spurs, Notre Dame, Pride of Gall Hill, Paradise, even Silver Sands. Although they got demoted. But people play for pride.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker, I was waiting for a point to actually enter on. The honourable member is misleading this chamber. Just for the record, Silver Sands, Abrams United Silver Sands football team, to give them their full name, did not get demoted. In fact, they were actually promoted from First Division to Premier League, so they'll be playing in the Premier League. And you can clap for that. And while we're there, Madam Chair, in the allegations that this is destroying the community football and the football teams that exist, the teams playing in the Prime Minister's Cup are drawn from the exact same teams which play in domestic football. Indeed, to qualify for the Prime Minister's Cup, you have to qualify at the level, at the top of your particular division. For Premier is the first all 10. For First Division is the first 5, Second Division, something like that. So actually, this enhances and incentivizes those teams to do even better in the domestic football competition to be able to qualify then to play for money. So I think it actually enhances and adds a brand new level of competition and provides incentive for the actual domestic competition, Madam Chair. So I'm glad he gave me the opportunity to respond to that and clarify that.
The member, sure. Oh.
The sum total of that intervention is to boast that that the honourable member has printed his name on their shirts. That is what the honourable member wanted to do. He will discover that that name will be erased in the not too distant future. And I will just remind him, the honourable member, that if they were promoted and having had a reasonably long life, they would have been demoted prior to this promotion, for which I congratulate them. Points of order again, ma'am. You know, 5 minutes ago I invited all these points of order, and every man
Continue,
and
sir.
woman remained silent.
You are not here yet. Sorry, sir. Continue.
They had found the spirit of the season, or the spirit of embarrassment. But now in football, everybody comes to life. Well, let them come to life. I congratulate the honourable member for Christchurch East for having the temerity to place his name on the shirt of an established football club. It's not something that is done too often. People who play in these divisions normally keep the name of the community as a matter of pride, but to come and put your name on the people's thing, anyhow, that will come off short.
Madam Chair,
What is,
the honourable member is misleading the chamber again, just as a matter of clarification, because we take a particular point in this. Silver Sands was an established football club. They had fallen on very hard times under the last administration with the former member for Christchurch East, and they could get no sponsorship at all. So I, in opposition at the time, went forward to sponsor them, and they insisted on placing my name on their shirts. I did not actually request it. I indeed, Madam Chair, sponsor 3 football teams in my area, 2 cricket teams, a volleyball team. And the only one that carries my name is the one that actually asked to put the name on. And when they did so, ma'am, I could not be so churlish as to deny them what they requested. I wonder why no teams in Christchurch South actually bear RAT, RT, or any other concoction of the same, or indeed whether or not he sponsors any teams. But you know, ma'am, I don't govern myself on him. I just wish to correct the record, Madam Chair, lest people leave with the wrong impression.
your tongue point is taken. I remember?
Yes. So that the honourable member was dragged kicking and screaming in acceptance of his name being placed on a jersey. And he had the chance to say no, but he reluctantly said, okay, all right, put my name. Y'all insist, please put my name. And that is the essence of parliamentary debate, that his name is there only by accident. There's a team in my constituency, but everybody knows the name of the team. The captain is Armando Lashley, who was the Barbados football captain. And I'm not going to say what I did for anybody. Yeah, that's not my style, nor content. That I would come in here and boast to the world that I gave money to a team? How vulgar, though. How absolutely vulgar. The honourable member has made himself famous for, from a distance, putting money in football teams and cutting the hair of young men as they're about to go back to school. I think I saw that in the paper, that he is a barber in the last week of August and the first week of September. Very poor barber. In the event that he cuts his own hair, he's not a very good barber at all. Point of order again? Oh, I see. Why you don't leave me now? So if the spirit of the season is to mean anything, I think we have engaged them long enough. The hour of 5, the 17th hour of this day approaches, and Your Honor, I suspect that I should not trespass on time any longer. The honourable member for Christchurch East Central has returned to say what he did not feel like saying this morning. He probably quoted, I think, exactly 8 lines from this voluminous document. He now returns to us with a new resolve to correct what he failed to do this morning. And I don't know if he will take 1 hour or 2 or 3. He will do disservice to this document if he speaks now for less than an hour. He will do disservice to this document unless he amends his earlier position that his advice to the people of this country, if they want to meaningfully participate in this economy, is to buy a barrel of rum and keep it in their shade rough. He probably knows what is a shade rough. He will clarify his earlier position that the most important investment that the people of this country are now invited to make is to invest in a barrel of rum for the sake of theirs and the country's future prosperity. Your Honor, there is a lot more that I can say, except that I feel that I've said a lot. And I don't wish to burden you, Your Honor, any further with the truth, because even the truth is of heavy weight when it lands on the shoulders of those who are guilty. So I will no longer burden them with the truth of this country's perilous economy. I will rest on the submissions that I have made, and I will close by saying that there is a distant separation between the objectives stated in this document and government's actual policy decisions, which remain inconsistent with the lofty objectives mentioned in this document. Your Honor, I am obliged to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, the last member that just took his seat spoke in very strong and shouting almost terms to be able to make points. But my mother once told me, you know, sometimes you do not have to shout to make a strong point. In fact, sometimes when you speak softly, people often have to open their ears to be able to hear what you are saying and to listen specifically to what you are saying. But when you shout, often they close their ears and miss the essence of what you are saying. And I must admit, sometimes when I get emotional, I do fall into that trap that the Honourable Member falls into. But I will try to restrain myself from it, because more than anything else, it came over strongly to me today that sometimes shouting, you don't get over the message. Because very little to no message came from the member that just took his seat, as he shouted and shouted and shouted all through his presentation for however long. But you know, I fully support this resolution. And let me start there. I support what the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central presented. He was very, very clear and very, very precise in the presentation, because this is a document that the government of Barbados and the people of Barbados can be justly proud. I go further to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, this document lays out very, very clearly growth at 4.5%, something positive that we can all be justly proud. Unemployment in single digits, the lowest that we have seen point to point almost for decades, 6.9%, something that we can be justly proud of. Reserves at 3.2 billion. Need I remind this honorable chamber that when we came to office, reserves were 1/8 of what they are there. 1/8 of the amount of reserves, foreign reserves that we have now. And capital expenditure booming across this country. You know, every indicator, every matrix of an economy that is performing is in this fiscal document, this resolution. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the dark days, the Triple D I call it, the dark days of the Dems. In the dark days of the Dems, Madam Deputy Speaker, if they had had a report like this, would they be parading up and down this country? They would have been. But there was no report like this under the dark days of the Democratic Labour Party. None. There was no reserves at 3 billion, 400 million and less. There was no unemployment at 6.9%. It was 10, 12, 14% and climbing. Don't talk about growth. Don't talk about growth. Madam Deputy Speaker, for 10 years under the last administration, the struggle to get 1% could not even get a 1% growth. And this country is now able to see 4.5% growth. This is something that this government has worked towards, and we are proud of it. And we continue to be proud of what this government has done. And that is what this resolution is about, to lay bare to all and sundry what we have been able to do and how we've been able to do it. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable member suggested that this is nothing special, that all through the Caribbean, people are experiencing wonderful growth. So it encouraged me to go and look at the numbers and see, is this true? Because I know that we are proud of what growth we have in Barbados, 4.5%. But in Bahamas, Madam Deputy Speaker, their growth, 1.8%. In Jamaica, their growth for the same period, 2.0%. In St. Lucia, their growth for the same period, 2.9%. Of course, I could not say Guyana, because Guyana is growing much better at 38%. But it is not that we are boasting about what we are doing, but we can be proud because it is showing that our programs and our policies are working and getting to the people and bringing this economy forward and lifting up Barbados and by extension, its people. And that's what this is about. And that's what this resolution is about. It is about building infrastructure, building the economy, and building it all through every sector of the society. But you know what troubled me most, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the honourable member's presentation? It was sad, and it is troubling when you see a political party move from its philosophical moorings. It spells trouble. When the last administration moved from its philosophical mooring and took away the opportunity for tertiary education for the young people of this country, it spelled trouble. And their reward was what they got in 2018 for that. They moved away from their philosophical mooring. Trouble was on the horizon, and they were justly rewarded. Again, we are hearing that they want to move away from the philosophical mooring that started with the very excellent Errol Walton Barrow when he built the first large hotel in Barbados, the Hilton Hotel, recognizing that we had to encourage tourism in this country if we were going to survive, recognizing that we had to give concessions for people to come and invest in this country. And he didn't stop there at the Hilton Hotel. There was also a hotel called Holiday Inn. That concessions were given to them too. Many people don't know that the land that Holiday Inn stands on is state land. State land, provided by the Democratic Labour Party, where he also put the Cruising Club. For those of you who don't know, the founding member of the Cruising Club was the same founder of the Democratic Labour Party. And he put that on the same land where Holiday Inn, it was called the Holiday Inn, it's now called the Radisson. I know, I grew up in the area, I know exactly all about it. And for the honourable member to suggest that we are only looking after one side of the economy and one side of the society by supporting and doing the exact same thing that the founding member of the Democratic Labour Party did, you have to be careful. You will get the same reward as the previous when they moved away from their philosophical mooring. This is an extremely important time. And I want the people of Barbados to understand that this country is going forward. Every single indicator is in the right direction. We are doing lots of construction. And I'm happy to see construction led this growth by 7.1%. And it's not only bricks and mortar. It's not only bricks and mortar. Those of you who pass on the ABC Highway would see by Gildan a structure that is going up very, very quickly that people are calling the spaceship. But it's not a spaceship. It is a structure made of steel as its support and a Kevlar fabric around it that will be housing the digitization center and also a life sciences park building out that facility because we are thinking outside of the box, using new ideas and using new technologies to be able to bring a sustainable development and a growth path for this country. And that's what this is about. And let me say, Madam Deputy Speaker, infrastructure is not only about buildings. Infrastructure is not only about hotels. Infrastructure includes digital infrastructure, and we're building that out. Infrastructure includes airport, seaport, cultural infrastructure as well. All of these things, one by one, we are tackling to be able to make Barbados better. And that is why we're going to continue to see growth. And you know, there's a saying, Madam Deputy Speaker, that people shop at Macy's because people shop at Macy's. And when investors see the number of investments that we're seeing throughout this country, the hotels that we're seeing, the villa construction that we're seeing, the mall construction that we're seeing, when investors see that, they say there has to be something happening in Barbados. And they themselves are encouraged to come and bring more investments. And that's exactly what we want to see. I would find it hard to believe that the honourable member does not want investment in this country. I could not imagine that that would be possible. That the honourable member who purports to be leader of the opposition, of course a leader of the opposition wants to at some point, I would imagine, have an ambition to become the government. But his naivety surely precludes any opportunity that he would then be able to take such high office. And he shows his naivety time and time again, not remembering the philosophy of his own party, not understanding that investment is absolutely essential for this country, not understanding that investment is not only local investment, but foreign direct investment as well. And everything working together to lift this country up and take us forward. This is the important thing. And further, let me be clear. Let me be pellucidly clear. I heard the honourable member for Christchurch East Central warned people about Ponzi schemes. I heard it very, very clearly, and I agree with him 100%. You know why? Because I remember when the last administration was getting into bed with Clicquot. And that particular matter that they were selling, I told this honorable chamber that that is a Ponzi scheme and it would crash. I told them that there was somebody named Dupre that was praying all over the Caribbean, praying on St. Lucia, praying on St. Vincent, praying on Dominica, praying on people all over. And the worst thing that that administration could do is get into bed with them. But they didn't listen to me. They didn't listen to me. And when it crashed, a whole prime minister rushing up to a central bank governor, begging for money to prop them up. You all remember it? Saw it on CBC? A whole prime minister rush up to the central bank and beg for $3 million. The same Ponzi scheme, a whole government gone in a Ponzi scheme. I fully support and explain and appreciate what the honourable member said and caution Barbadians. Because we are here not only to do government's business, but also to protect poor people. And if the honourable member don't believe in protecting poor people, maybe he should get up on a point of order now. You don't believe in protecting poor people? If you don't believe in protecting, get up on the point of order. You get up on the point of order now, honourable member. No, you get up on the point of order and say you don't believe in protecting poor people. Get up and say you don't believe in protecting poor people. I want this country, I want this chamber, for the honourable member in his silence has obviously agreed that he don't believe in protecting poor people. But that is not the feeling on this side. We believe in protecting poor people. We believe in making sure that people's rights are observed, and also we believe that if they are going down the wrong road, we have to give them the right advice. So I agree with the honourable member, making it clear, there's a saying, if it is too good to be true, it probably is not true. And if people are offering you all sorts of returns in quick order, it probably is not true. And be warned, because there are lots of charlatans out there, not only on that side, there are lots of charlatans out there that are prepared to take your money from you. This resolution, Madam Deputy Speaker, tells a story. And the government of 6 years, we have a story to tell. We have faced many obstacles. We have faced many trials and many tribulations. From a pandemic to volcanic to the hurricane, all of these. But we have weathered them and weathered them well. We have steered the ship of state and brought it through, and we continue on a trajectory that is positive. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, when you hear the honourable member on that side speak about debt, you would think that the Democratic Labour Party was this great purview of managing debt. But we all know that they have no moral authority whatsoever to discuss debt. They took us to the stratosphere of debt in the world. The stratosphere of debt in the world, Madam Deputy Speaker. We had never ever been the third highest indebted country in the world till the Democratic Labour Party. And yet the Democratic Labour Party's chief spokesman comes to lecture us on debt. When they demitted office, Madam Deputy Speaker, the debt was 140% of territory. Or in that region, I can't remember the exact number, but 140% of gross domestic product. Enough percent. That's a whole and a half. 176% of gross domestic product. You would not believe, Madam Deputy Speaker, that in this very same document, the Honourable Member he read out all sorts of parts, but failed to read out that the debt is now 105 and trajecting downward, and very soon, I anticipate, that debt in this country will soon be in double digits and not triple digits like it was under them. A tremendous achievement of this government and of this country, because it's not only the government that did it, it's the country working with the government that did it. So there's nobody in the Democratic Party that could tell us, lecture us, explain to us nothing about debt. Because they had an experiment about printing money. Well, we now know printing money does not work. Does not work. We know, and we are doing it every single day, the only way to get out of a problem that they had, that they put us in, is to grow yourself out of the problem. You have to grow yourself out. You cannot borrow yourself out of the problem. And that is exactly why our growth trajectory is where it is. Because we recognize that growth must be our number one job. Growth sector by sector by sector to get ourselves out of debt. And that's exactly what we have done. And that's why our debt is coming down. And I fully anticipate, and I will be rejoicing and celebrating when our debt gets less than triple digits, into double digits. And that's what we need to do. And the unfortunate thing, Madam Deputy Speaker, is when people on the other side that hear our voice, hear the Honourable Member suggesting that this was wrong and that was wrong. What he said? A failed government. Well, if there was any failed government, it was the Democratic Labour Party. If there was any failed government, there was the Democratic Labour Party. This government is performing, not failing. This government is seeing success, and the record is clear. And for him to fly in the face of the record, well, that's his choice. I guess leave the opposition have to do what they're being paid for, to oppose. And the Honourable Member decides that he must oppose every single thing, speak for 3 hours or whatever, but say nothing. 4, but yet still say nothing. As loud as he can, but say nothing that resonates with the people of this country. If there is nothing else, I want the people of this country to hear and hear me clearly. Every single metric or measure of an economy for Barbados at this present time is doing well. Every single one. This is why the people that invest all over the world are coming to invest in Barbados. Because they read it, they see it, and they see confidence in this country. Confidence. That at lunchtime, I met with my Prime Minister and myself met with another group, local group, who are looking to do another infrastructure project, to build another hotel in Barbados. And this is something that we meet people all the time who want to invest. Nobody, Madam Deputy Speaker, nobody is going to invest in a country that is failing. Well, we know that. Well, we saw it under the Democratic Labour Party. We talk about, the Honourable Member talk about loans this and loans that. But the reason they had to print money is because nobody would lend them. Nobody would take on the risk of the Democratic Labour Party administration and lend them, so they had to resort to what they could do themselves, print money. And that's the problem. Contrary, in this administration, people are prepared to lend us because they see that we are doing well, that we are encouraging growth, that we are encouraging investment, that we are making things happen, and people are coming here to invest and get on the train with us. And that is exactly what we are trying to do, and that is exactly what we must encourage time and time again. I want to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this resolution is but a point in time. But we anticipate that things will get even better. And we are working every day to make things better. We're working to sustain the growth and make it better. Take it from 4.6 to 5, even to 6, if we can get it there. If we could get unemployment to 4%, that's exactly where we want to go. Because we're not, although this is good, it is not what we want better. Because we know that the people in this country have it in them to strive and do a really good job. We know the potential, we know the opportunity, and it is our job to create those opportunities so people can live their best lives and do the best for the people of this country. I want to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that throughout this administration's life, we have strived to make things better. Are we perfect? No. Do we strive to make things better? Yes. Do we learn from our mistakes? Yes. Unlike the Democratic Party, who has not learned from its mistake and still moving away from its philosophical mooring. It won't work. You will be rewarded with the same thing your predecessor got rewarded with. The honorable member came and offered warnings. I could offer warnings to him too. So if you want to go down in history as the second person that led that party and led it to another defeat, and I don't know how bad the defeat will be, but you continue on that trajectory. But I would suggest to you that you will be rewarded in a similar way. Stick to what your philosophy is. Recognize that you do not have to oppose everything. Recognize that in this country, investment is critical, foreign direct investment is important, and tourists coming to our country and people building opportunities for accommodation has been the lifeblood of this country for decades, started by the Right Excellent Earl Walton Barrow, the leader and the founder of the party that you now purport to lead. And for you to now come and criticize that work and criticize this government for doing exactly what your founder did is, well, I wouldn't want to say the word that I would say because you would tell me that that is unparliamentary. So let me just say it is a travesty, and maybe the honourable member got up on a wrong side of the bed and, tried to write his speech as he's read the document, going paragraph by paragraph, and recognizes he obviously made some mistakes, tried to correct them in between, but could not take back. This is a serious matter. This is what we have done, and this shows the people what we continue to do. So I, Madam Deputy Speaker, will just want to add one final thing. I want to wish the great people of Christchurch West a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I don't know whether we'll be coming back. I also noted, apart from one sentence about Dover and Oistins, I remember, did not remember his constituencies or his constituent. I think he's accepted that he's not going back there, and he's obviously looking further afield to some other constituency. But don't worry, we have a proper candidate that will become the member for Christchurch South very, very shortly, whenever the Prime Minister calls that time. But it is, if it were not for the diligence and their confidence in me, I would not be here today. From 2003 to now, in 2024, I've been able to come to this honorable chamber. I have seen many people come through this chamber, many with great ambition, but true, few were chosen. Many who had great destinies and came with great intelligence, but did not deliver. And I didn't put the honorable member in that category, but just to remind him, keep with the philosophical moorings of your party, because if you don't, your reward will be the same as your predecessor. Honourable Member, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for Decisions.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I won't detain the chamber long, but I would like to start off by saying that it is one of my basic tenets and training that I got over the years was the importance of, if you're going to go into leadership, it was necessary to prepare yourself. And that you should come with substance, you should come with some level of competence, but the most important thing is to act with integrity, that people can trust your word. And sometimes people try to get into a space before they are ready. And that lack of readiness results in showcasing the underlying weaknesses that are there, because we're in the public space and we're in the public eye. I know that from time to time, the Honourable Member for Christchurch South has had difficulty with keeping up with information or understanding how things are done, and therefore falls into the trap of projecting information that demonstrates he does not understand how government works, how an economy works, and how you provide for people. And I start by saying this because one of the things that stunned me at first, I didn't mention it earlier, but one of the things that stunned me was the fact that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central had laid a ministerial statement in this same Parliament less than 2 weeks ago, in which he went into this particular statement talking about how the economy was functioning, what was happening in relation to the things that Barbados was doing, etc. And he did a ministerial statement. And that preceded the resolution then that we laid today. And therefore, it was a surprise to me that he obviously had missed all of that and felt that he had to waste the Parliament's time by pulling out pieces from out of the document, trying to maintain that he, in some way, was here to educate the public because the public had missed something. But he was there, he was not there last week or week before, and obviously missed that entire thing. He also made a statement that was a little stunning, simply because he talked about being careful and things about bullets and so on. But the truth is, Madam Speaker, the people who really dodged the bullet were the people of Barbados. And every time he speaks, I'm convinced more and more that this country dodged a bullet. And by making their choice, the choice of the Barbados Labour Party to represent them, to take the perilous situation that we found ourselves in and took it and straightened it out and managed the affairs in very tumultuous conditions, and to be able to bring Barbados out like a shining star, performing exceedingly well. So I just want to take a few minutes to draw to the attention of the Honourable Member and to those who may have been confused by some of the things that he was sharing, a different understanding of why you do what you do. When you care for small shops and small people and small businesses, one of the things you recognize is that you have to lay the economic foundation in such a way that they can function. Now, a small shop, in order to function, has to gather inputs to put in the shop to sell. Otherwise, they cannot feed their children. And that requires foreign reserves. Now, when you hand over an economy with only $400 million in foreign reserves, which means that it cannot manage for 12 weeks to provide for people, you've now put every small shop at risk. And if you are a government that is faced with that situation, where your enterprises are not firing because your unemployment is high, people are not spending, you're not earning the foreign exchange, then what is it you do? You have to clean up your accounts, you have to clean up your debt, and then put yourself in a position where you can command the resources that will help you to jumpstart your economy from your small shops all the way up to your big hotels. And that means you have to get foreign reserves. And when your economy is not firing, the only way to get them is to borrow. But to borrow is not begging, because you are paying back. This is not like a household where you missing a little bit of sugar or flour, you don't have any money to buy it, and you go next door and you beg or you borrow. That's not what it is. Every single country in this world borrows, and you can only borrow if you have good economic management of your economy. And Barbados has been able to make that grade over the past 6 years under the Barbados Labour Party, led by Mia Amor-Motley. It's as simple as that. The Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast. By putting ourselves in the position to be able to get the loans, to be able to create the foreign reserves, we were able to make way for the recovery of tourism, because tourism has to consume foreign reserves in order to create foreign reserves, because you have to import a number of goods, etc., in order to make a hotel run. You need it for your small shops. If you're going to restart your economy with a construction industry where you are seeking to attract billions of dollars in construction, you have to have the foreign reserves to get the cement, to get the wood, to get the supplies. And this is how you're going to be able to create jobs for who? Your young people. Those families who are depending on a young man to be able to go and do some work and be able to come in and put down some money. When they're able to spend that money in those shops, when they're able to spend that money with their families, and those families go out and spend across the economy, what happens then is that we are able then to create jobs in your retail sector, because as they get more business, they have to hire more people. When you want to make your economy work, you have to understand the strategy. So when the Honourable Member, Leader of the Opposition, could talk about how much of your foreign reserves come from loans versus come from earnings, I knew he had completely misunderstood what the strategy was. Because obviously, their plan would have been not to borrow, which means every single business in Barbados would have stayed in the dirt, would have stayed down in that hole that they had dug for them, and they would never have been able to get us out from where we were as a country. I was also deeply kerfuffled, Madam Speaker, when he spoke about what we did to the NIS and how we gave them a haircut of $1 billion, and how we adjusted the age at which people could get their NIS pension, as though he was totally unaware of the peril in which the Democratic Labour Party had put the NIS. The NIS must have a balanced portfolio, a balance between domestic and foreign investments. Those investments must be in things that are safe enough that they can earn, that the NIS can deliver on its promise to people, that we took money out of their wages and put aside for investment with the promise that we would give them back when they came to a retirement position. And here you had the Democratic Labour Party, who destabilized that portfolio, creating too much investment domestically and putting the NIS at risk. And then, when we had to step back in now to rescue the situation, and we did so, yes, they took a haircut, but what we did was that we gave them bonds, but we know that they need to get back that money in order that they can rebalance their loan portfolio. I have the freedom to be able to go back out into the wider market, know that we have a better credit rating to be able to get a better return on their investment. We gave them back $400 million just about less than 4 weeks ago or so. We did a vote in this chamber that gave them back $400 million of that money that they had in bonds. And yet, all of a sudden, you hear people start quarreling about it. And I'm like, the quarrel when we give them the bonds, and now we give them back the money, is a problem again. But this happens, ma'am, when people come to office, when people are looking to serve themselves, when they're seeking to be able to project themselves into leadership, into government. And it does not matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter who you fool, as long as you can manipulate the minds of people to give you the opportunity to get into a position of leadership for which you are not ready to function. And that deeply saddened me, man. It deeply saddened me. The test of care and genuineness of care can be found in your ability to identify with hurt or lack wheresoever it is found. And the honourable member for the opposition waxed lyrical, hot, fiery, peppery, up and down, musical. It was like a verbal ballet. A verbal ballet. And it was filled, in the opinion of some, with nauseating pretentiousness. And I'll explain why they thought that. Waxing lyrical on fishermen who are already receiving that income. And those who want to receive can receive as long as they submit the necessary papers, because we will pay until we've paid them all. And waxing lyrical on how they're suffering. But when the honourable member for Christchurch East Central spoke about that scam that deprived dozens and dozens and dozens of Barbadians of money that they had put aside, and they sought to put it in something that they thought would give them some high returns, only to find that they had lost all their money, not an ounce of compassion for that group. I was stunned. Because anyone listening would think that, let me get it right, this is not a patronizing intervention. This is a moral cause. I am in search of justice. And he had no compassion and saw no need to search for justice on behalf of those who'd been scammed, who'd been shamed, and who now find themselves in financial difficulties that they had not anticipated they would have been in today. And I call that pretentiousness. So, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I just want to say to Barbadians, we have come into a time of change in this world, and fake news, lies, manipulation are more and more becoming the order of the day, where there is absolutely no shame in misrepresenting information, in scaremongering, in concocting other stories with plain facts. And therefore, for me, my concern is that the people of Barbados, to me, are at risk. They're like prey for these predators to come and prey on them and seek to manipulate them. And one of the things I want to encourage Barbadians to do is to read widely, to listen to both sides, to seek out facts. Don't let anybody read and spell for you. Don't just swallow what is said. Go and get the information, go and get the facts, and make the adjustments that you need and make the decisions that you need. Our economy is in better shape than it has been since 2008. It has gone through a battering under the Dems. It has experienced bad fiscal management. And then as we came into office, you had the impact of COVID, you had the impact of the dust storm. We had a number of things that destabilized what we were seeking to do in this country. But no, most of those things are in our rearview mirror and was shared by my honorable colleagues in this chamber. The improvement of moving from $400 million in reserves up to $3.2 billion, moving from debt to GDP ratio of 176 down to 105 speaks of good management, steady hands, competent and innovative thinking and planning, but it also speaks of a people who at their heart are committed to this country. You put our confidence in us to lead you out. You put your confidence in us to take you to a better place. And we will honor that pledge. We will guide and lead with a steady hand in this country to ensure that every Barbadian gets the chance to live that best life. And I want to congratulate the government on the continuous work that we're doing in relation to roads, the work we're doing in relation to education, the work we're doing in relation to health care, and the work that we're doing in terms of building out manufacturing and agriculture. I look forward to my other colleagues sharing on the things that we are doing that has helped us to come to a place of having our economy grow at almost 4%. I thank you, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker. I'm obliged for the time.
Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm not often lost for words. And I must admit that in rising to wrap up this debate, I've had to be very reflective on what I would say, because we all are aware that the Democratic Labour Party allowed sewage to flow across Christchurch South for the better part of 3 years. And what the public certainly was treated to today was quite reminiscent of the effluent that flowed on those streets. And it is just ironic that it is the member for Christchurch South from whose lips such flowed this afternoon. Because this government, Madam Deputy Speaker, has been quite resolute that the things that we have to put in place to improve the lives of ordinary Barbadians, Madam Deputy Speaker, these are serious issues, not to be trifled with. And therefore, I find it particularly disappointing in the manner in which I couldn't even describe it as a contribution, but since it's Parliament, we will have to suggest and use that type of language. But to be quite frank, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm not pleased at all. Not pleased at all. Not pleased at all. Now, so let me thank honourable members for their contributions. It is Christmas, after all, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we are of good cheer. And therefore, I will leave that there for what it's worth for the public to over the course of a drink or two, they can reflect on what was presented in this chamber this afternoon. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the government of Barbados, and I thought I was reasonably clear without getting into a whole set of numbers and all types of things this morning. But there was one thing that the honourable member said that struck with me, because it gave the impression that you were downplaying the importance of an opportunity with respect to investing in rum. And I will repeat it, because, Madam Deputy Speaker, our exports of rum is just over $100 million US per year. There is a very clear and aggressive plan, Madam Deputy Speaker, to increase that to $1 billion a year by 2030. And if the honourable member does not understand and appreciate, if the Democratic Labour Party does not understand and appreciate that ordinary Bajans can legitimately participate in helping us achieve that and earn a rate of return as part of that investment, then I don't know, Madam Deputy Speaker, where the honourable member is going, because we want this recovery to be inclusive. And therefore, I don't want nobody to buy a barrel of rum and take it home, and that is nonsense, Madam Deputy Speaker. That is foolishness. And I say so without apology, because it is to give the impression that this is not a serious government. We are talking about the ability for ordinary citizens in this country, Madam Deputy Speaker, ordinary citizens, to fully participate in bona fide investment. And I raise that in the context that people have been defrauded time and time again, Madam Deputy Speaker, by people who come and give promises of a quick return. And I know that the honourable member might wish for a quick return in some, because he spoke about by elections and all types of things that have no relevance at all to the fiscal framework, none whatsoever, Madam Deputy Speaker, except that if it is indeed so, what he's saying, and whoever is elected, you would like to believe that the people would elect that person who would elect a representative who is thinking about how they can advance their cause individually, but as well as the country. And therefore, yes, elections matter. Of course, elections matter, because we saw the results of the election of 2008 and 2013, and the people of Christchurch South were the recipients of the sewage that flowed on the streets and the rest of the country, Madam Deputy Speaker, because of a lack of leadership, a lack of focus, imagination, and to be quite honest, Madam Deputy Speaker, the ability to solve simple things. And let us not try to create the impression as if, and I know as if things are easy. And I think that sometimes, Madam Deputy Speaker, as we have done all of the work that we've done over the last 6 years, to the leader of the opposition in the Democratic Labour Party, it might look easy. And therefore, because things are back on track, in spite of all of the challenges that we are facing, the presumption is it's easy. And therefore, you can get up in here and talk all through the windows, the ceiling and everything, Madam Deputy Speaker, but have not connected with anything that is substantive, Madam Deputy Speaker, with respect to how you're going to improve people's lives. And therefore, I know that we, all 30 of us, spent hours going through the policy matrix before we came to office, and we have been executing that policy matrix. We call it a manifesto, and we've delivered on the promises in the manifestos in 2018, in 2022, Madam Deputy Speaker, because we determined that we were going to make sure that we focus on what was required to help people, and we continue to execute on that mandate, Madam Deputy Speaker. So therefore, this fiscal framework resolution that we're discussing here this evening, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is truly fundamental as to how we are going to help people live better in this country going forward. And therefore, when we speak to the issues of training opportunities, that not one training program was introduced for young people in this country between 2008 and 2018. Not one. When all of us canvassed the country, we saw hundreds of people in our communities, Madam Deputy Speaker, who left school. They had no work, no opportunity, nothing. And this government determined that we were going to do something about that. And therefore, as we seek to build out now and try to recover the experienced deficit, because the Minister of Labour can attest, but the Honourable Member for Christchurch West can also attest, that we are facing a shortage of skills in this country right now. Not because of anything that the Barbados Labour Party did or didn't do. We are trying to play catch up. Catch up. Because there was no investment in human capital under the Democratic Labour Party between 2008 and 2018. So you could stand up and hear, Honourable Member, and let what flowed from your lips this afternoon continue. But we are focused on the things that are going to make people's lives better. And all I say to Barbadians at this Christmas time is that as we move into 2025, do not get distracted with foolishness, Madam Deputy Speaker. Do not get distracted with foolishness. We have to focus on what is going to improve the lives of people. And therefore, whether it is investment in it is important that Bajans appreciate that when we speak about the bioeconomy, Madam Deputy Speaker, because, the Honourable Member asked a lot of questions. He spoke about the heritage economy and the heritage district. He spoke about the bioeconomy, and he don't understand, one, the story of Barbados is the story of rum, Madam Deputy Speaker, and vice versa. And that rum, as the first, relatively the first innovation, when you think about the science of it, it is the definition of how a bioeconomy works, Madam Deputy Speaker. And therefore, to try to make light of the fact that Barbados invented rum, and that we want Bajans now, Madam Deputy Speaker, that whilst we are seeing investment crowding into the rum space, that we want Bajans to also be a part of that. And therefore, if the Honourable Member wants to make light of that, then that is his business. But I say to Bajans, when the opportunity arises, rather than thinking that you can get a 200% return in a few days, or 300% in 2 weeks, or whatever people are promising you, which are not real, we know where we are taking the rum industry. And therefore, from that perspective, Madam Deputy Speaker, as the rum ages in the cask, you understand? Accumulating value, Madam Deputy Speaker, and when bottled in the limited edition, every time you speak to any of the distilleries, they tell you that every time they put out a limited edition, they fly off the shelf, Madam Deputy Speaker. You understand? The kind of money that will make your head grow if you had here, if I had here, Madam Deputy Speaker. But this is serious. And therefore, if we are going to ensure that generational wealth can be passed on, Madam Deputy Speaker, these are the hard nuts and bolts things that we have to get right. And that's why I said this morning, Madam Deputy Speaker, that anybody come and ask you to put money in anything, and you ask them what is it that is going to be traded, that is supporting this rate of return, and they can't tell you what it is, who producing it, what part is selling it, who buying it, Madam Deputy Speaker, left it out. Left it out. Because 2025 is not just the gathering that is coming, and we talk about exports, and therefore when Bajans come home, Madam Deputy Speaker, and as part of the diaspora, reconnect, not just the increase in arrivals, but reconnecting and helping to invest in opportunities with Bajans. And as I said earlier, with the support of IDB Lab to try to ensure that our entrepreneurs who are innovating, as you know, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have the Future Barbados project, which we are advancing. And therefore, if we can find these opportunities where not just people in the diaspora can help to invest, because people got connections all over the world, Madam Deputy Speaker. And once people are prepared to work together, then I'm confident that this strategy with respect to having a private sector export-led growth initiative will take root. But it can only take root and people feel it, Madam Deputy Speaker, if they are involved. And therefore, I make no apologies for it because I gave an example, which I know is something that the Democratic Party cannot tell Bajans how to do anything because all that came from them was tax this, tax this, tax this, tax that. No confidence. And therefore, we have set about the task of ensuring that people see and feel things. So I will repeat it again. The Honourable Member for Christchurch West, there are so much construction projects in this country. The Honourable Member, despite what the Honourable Member for Christchurch South is saying, not just that Hope building houses, but ordinary Barbadians building houses across the length and breadth of this country, and housing, which is private investment, Madam Deputy Speaker, your constituents and my constituents and everybody considering here, investing in Barbados in spite of what the Honourable Member from Christchurch South is saying. And that too would require more people with skills to keep up with the demand. As you know as well, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have been putting on the Construction Gateway Program. The Honourable Member for my neighbour from Christchurch West Central will attest. All the freighting and not just from the construction, but in the cleaning of your environs. We need more people with backhoe capability, bobcat capability to keep up with the demand for both construction and the environmental components, given we've already signaled to the country that we want people to clean up around the place, and people start already, Madam Deputy Speaker. There's just so much work that needs to be done, and therefore I say again to any young person, there are opportunities right now, and I repeat it again, as these hotels and villas and the same things that the Honourable Member complaining about, when they're finished constructed, Madam Deputy Speaker, and the jobs are available, I say to the young people or whoever else who may be interested in hearing, there are training opportunities being provided by the Ministry of Education. They're free, and therefore there is no excuse for anybody who wants work not to be able to put themselves in a position to be hired. And therefore, this government ain't talking about it, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're doing it. And therefore, rather than help people to match with the opportunities, and to be quite frank, Madam Deputy Speaker, you and I both know that the opportunity is not going to come up the Parliament steps and come sit down in anybody's lap in here. You got to get up and go and make yourself available, Madam Deputy Speaker, for what is going on. And therefore, as we, as government, try to chart and navigate a course in the midst of all of what is happening globally, at the beginning of this month, today is the 17th, to the best of my knowledge, at the beginning of this month, since the beginning of this month, we've had about 4 governments, Madam Deputy Speaker, that has fallen, if my memory serves me correctly. About 4. You cannot take this thing lightly. You cannot take this thing lightly. And therefore, we are very fortunate in Barbados to have stability in spite of everything that's happened with the Democratic Party, because the reality of it is, Madam Deputy Speaker, that when we took over office in 2018, their record, nobody had any obligation to help Barbados, because all the messages that were given to them leading up to that point, it was pure pride and arrogance, Madam Deputy Speaker, fobbing off all types of people, telling them no, nobody had to help Barbados. But people understood that a stable Barbados is important for a stable region. And therefore, we cannot take this thing lightly. And therefore, it is important that we appreciate that as we try to maintain a positive growth trajectory, that it is important that you have a set of institutions that you know are capable of not just being stable, but being able to deliver on the various mandates. Now, I could go on and on and on and on about all the drama that has taken place in George Street for this whole year. We could, because that is not the example that any of us would want to give anybody confidence that we would be able to lead a country if we exhibited that kind of behavior. But the reality of it is that people notice that. People notice that. And therefore, it is a reflection. It is a reflection on Barbados. And therefore, we must all take our words and our actions seriously, Madam Deputy Speaker, because when we get up in here, Madam Deputy Speaker, we aren't just representing ourselves, individual constituents. We stand up in here and we represent Barbados. And people listen to what we say in that context. And therefore, a word to the wise, Madam Deputy Speaker, is sufficient on that. Now, I will be very brief because the honourable member seems to think that somehow that the more you talk, that somehow, you know, I have a good friend that sometimes says that people just like to air them out. That is not my style, Madam Deputy Speaker. So this fiscal framework strategy maps out at a high level the things that we know we should continue to do. All I ask Barbadians is to help us do them faster. Because the sooner we can get these things done, it means that the benefits start to flow sooner, Madam Deputy Speaker. And therefore, all that the government has been able to achieve so far and will continue to do into 2025, I say to people, let us see how quickly, if we can halve the amount of time it takes to get stuff done, that will make a significant difference to the fortunes for not just for 2025, but beyond. And therefore, every year, let us commit to being able to see how we can address issues and reduce those times even further, because if we do that year by year by year by year, then the investment that we're asking people to make across a range of areas, I think will pay dividends and therefore allow then for more resources to be crowded in and for us to be able to achieve not just the debt to GDP target by 2035, but a robust economy that, in spite of everything that's happening globally, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we're able to withstand all that confronts us. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am not going to detain the chamber any longer. This is an important resolution, I believe, that will help to signal again the government's commitment to maintaining prudent fiscal management and be able to ensure that we continue to meet our targets. But as we go forward with respect to into 2025 and beyond, that the measures contained in here, and I know that in a few months' time we'll be coming back here in relation to a few matters in relation to some of the budgetary proposals and the updates on that. We will see, Madam Deputy Speaker, not just the successful implementation of this fiscal framework document, but Bajans, Madam Deputy Speaker, as well as those who choose to live in Barbados, will see the benefits of the good work that the Barbados Labour Party has done. And as I wrap up this debate, Madam Deputy Speaker, I take this opportunity to wish not just the constituents of Christchurch Central, but to wish all Barbadians a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, Madam Deputy Speaker, because this is a year that has presented some challenges, but we know that we have been able to rise above that in spite of it and to come out the back end of it much stronger. And so with those 4 words, Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this resolution do not pass.
The question is that this resolution do not pass. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. He thinks the ayes have it. This resolution is now passed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise simply to do the honor on behalf of the government of Barbados, all of my parliamentary colleagues, to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and indeed a happy and prosperous New Year. But as I do so, I am also mindful that in our neighboring country of Trinidad, that parliament has also lost one of its ministers in the Ministry of Education in a recent fire by the name of Lisa Morris Juhan. And I would want that perhaps as we close that we can have a minute's silence for the lives that have been lost. And certainly we would want to pay respects to certainly her family and to express condolences, not only on behalf of this parliament, but certainly on behalf of the people of Barbados. I believe Prime Minister Motley has already expressed condolences, but I think all of us in here understand the nature of this time of year and certainly losing a loved one, and I would want certainly that we can express, and I will do so on behalf of the Leader of the Opposition as well, to be able to express sincere condolences on behalf of the people of Barbados to the families that have been affected by this fire. As I close the session for this year, Madam Deputy Speaker, I do so mindful that we've had a fairly rough year. This year has been perhaps no different from many of the others. This Parliament has certainly been doing, I think, more business and more of the people's business than any other parliament. Certainly you, Madam Deputy Speaker, you've been here longer than all of us, and I'm sure you are well aware that the hours and the days that we have kept are unprecedented in terms of the nature of these debates. We have achieved a tremendous lot of work over the course of the last year. We have brought a lot of legislation, transformational legislation, both in the form of the disabilities legislation, which is on the order paper now, will be debated early in the new year. But we've also been doing quite a bit in terms of child protection and also in terms of child justice, and we brought those two bills to this chamber earlier. We've also been doing a lot in relation to various policies, whether it's been a sports policy, whether it's been a policy on aging, the policy on disabilities. Again, a tremendous amount of work has gone into the effort to be able to identify as a parliament and certainly as a government the nature of what we would want to see us accomplish over the course of the next couple of years. And I know that the persons who work within CPC have been working tirelessly with the Attorney General to be able, and the Minister of Home Affairs, who acts several times as well, have been working to try to get the legislation to this place so that we can be as transformational in our agenda as possible. In the coming year, we have a number of pieces of legislation that I know the public has been asking for, particularly the legislation that would address the issue of the overgrowth of lots. And I know that that is highly anticipated. I believe the committee is soon ready for us to be able to bring it back to Parliament. And so we should, in the new year, be able to bring the Health Services Amendment Bill, along with a human tissue transplant bill, as well as the stormwater management bill, which will obviously address the issues of drainage across the country and give certainly the drainage unit a lot more teeth in terms of being able to address issues of drainage across our communities. We can also look out for the copyright bill. Again, a major piece of reform in terms of that legislation. And the truth of the matter, ma'am, is that there are going to be several other pieces of legislation in the new year that this Parliament will be asked to consider, which will continue to transform the lives of people. That is what we have come here to do. At times, it seems tiring for the most part, because we put a lot into establishing a new regime, especially now that we're a republic. And I know that the public may not always understand all of what we do, but I want to give the assurance that when we are in this place, and certainly when we are in the Cabinet of Barbados, we are trying to make sure that we do right by the people. We have a number of projects, Madam Deputy Speaker, over the course of the next year that I believe are going to start to allow us to see the growth that is necessary in the economy. We have spent a lot of time trying to stabilize the economy, and I won't go over it, but I think all of my colleagues have spoken at some point in relation to the level of growth that we are starting to see appearing. Of course, we can speak of growth, but unless people feel it in their pockets, they actually don't feel as though we are growing. But I can see that based on the agenda, certainly in the Ministry of Planning and all of the projects that are on the horizon, that we can certainly start to see an uptick, not only in tourism, but also in the construction sector, in the housing sector, and certainly roads and drainage will be high on the agenda for 2025, much to the delight of my colleagues. I certainly, Madam Deputy Speaker, for 2025 will be embarking on another Mill and Pave program. I won't call it accelerated, but what is for sure is that this Parliament and certainly the people of Barbados have requested of us to do things differently. And if that means that we have to work in the dry months of the year to be able to accelerate the people's business of doing roads and correcting all of the issues of drainage and engineering in this country, then that is what we will have to do in terms of deploying the necessary resources in order to do so. As we celebrate this season, ma'am, I want us to not forget the season that we're in. I heard a colleague on the other side speak not so glowingly of some of the activities that we have engaged in on this side in terms of bringing some cheer and joy and hope to a number of vulnerable people, but also people generally across our communities during this season. It is an unfortunate comment, but one which is to be expected from one who is not accustomed to doing things for our constituents. So I guess we have to expect or not be surprised by what we expect. But to say simply, sir, that, ma'am, that, we gave when we were in opposition, and we gave to the people, and equally in government, we have a responsibility not just to create policies that impact the people, but certainly as representatives to continue to maintain that contact in our communities, whether it is for our children, the able-bodied, the most vulnerable, or whether it is for the elderly within the community. And so I believe that each of us, including the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, when he may have a moment, may reflect on the fact that this is a season for giving and sharing, and I'm sure that he will be inspired to so do in whichever constituency he may choose to run in, because we're clearly not sure which one it is, Madam Deputy Speaker. But I would want that we remember that this is obviously the time of the year where we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. It is a period where we look at the fact that we look at other people who are less fortunate, but also that it is a time of reflection on where we have come from in terms of our journey, but also a time of reflection in terms of where we want to go. And I certainly believe that this Parliament has been able to demonstrate a level of seriousness in terms of where we want to go. And certainly our government has been able to demonstrate that we have a vision for this country in terms of being able to ensure that life is a bit easier for all Barbadians, not any one particular subset of Barbadians. I want to thank all of the people who make our job here a lot easier, a lot smoother, to all of the clerks of the Parliament, to the ancillary staff, to the security, both the Barbados Police Service, as well as the security here at Parliament, to all of the staff, the watchmen, all of the staff that make this place enjoyable while we are here. And of course, to the catering staff as well, who make sure that whether it is us as members of Parliament or our guests from time to time, that people are accommodated in this place in a humane manner and that they are able to enjoy their time in this place. To all of the people who have been listening and watching, whether here or abroad, again, I want to thank you as well. And also for the feedback on the legislation that we have passed or legislation that is to be debated. Ma'am, we are made better as a government as a result of our consultative process, of the fact that we pause sometimes and listen. Sometimes we even listen to the leader of the opposition. Not willingly, but we often do. And we also listen to voices that may be contrary to our own positions and try to take from it what is necessary in order to improve what we do once it is in the interest of the people. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to again extend a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the Leader of the Opposition. I hope that the next year you're able to find your ground in terms of the rest of your party, and certainly the persons who I think were to be named earlier this year. and that things can settle down within the Democratic Labour Party, because we will all be better for that. And certainly you will continue to keep us on our toes. But I certainly wish you good health through you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and hope that in the new year that being truthful and familiar with the facts of a lot of the things that are brought to this place can certainly enlighten you and shed some light on you as we go forward. To you, Madam Deputy Speaker, you have held the helm of this place on behalf of the Speaker, and I want to thank you as well. It has not been easy for you either at times. The Leader of the Opposition has given you much to do in your position as Madam Deputy Speaker, but as usual, you have carried out the business of this place and certainly the business of this government in a very humble but also very firm way, and I want to thank you as well for ensuring that this place is not brought into disrepute. To the Honourable Member for St. Lucie as well, St. Lucie, who also acts from time to time as our chairman of committees, again want to thank you for being able to guide us through the process of this place. And again, to all Barbadians, I want us to remember the spirit of the season, that it is a time for giving and caring and sharing. Let us not forget the biblical story on which Christmas has arisen, because sometimes we forget and we get caught up in spending and on things that we may not necessarily need to spend on. But I think this is a time for us to reflect and to be wise in what we do. And I therefore hope that all Barbadians can enjoy the season in some form or fashion, and we look forward to what 2025 may bring for this country in terms of growth and prosperity for all Barbadians. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to just wish the Honourable Prime Minister as well a happy Christmas and a blessed New Year. The truth is that while some may be critical of travel, all of us who serve in cabinet and certainly in the parliamentary group and those who work around her, while she works us very hard, we also are well aware of the outstanding work that she has done globally, not only to put Barbados on the map, but to ensure that the necessary financing that this country needs to stabilize is put in place. And I can only pray and hope that God will continue to strengthen her and to allow us to recognize that leadership does matter, not only locally, but it matters globally for Barbados to be able to, as Kofi Annan said many years ago, that Barbados is known for punching above its weight. So there is no question, certainly in our minds on this side, as to whether travel is necessary or whether the cost of travel is necessary. We have seen the result of whether it's grant funding or low concessional funding coming to this country to be able to allow us to build out things from the sewage project, to be able to replace water mains, to be able to improve the lives of Barbadians. Have we got it all right, Madam Deputy Speaker? That is a work in progress. But the truth is that Barbados has done stellar and is continuing to do good work as a result of strong leadership across the globe and certainly locally. And with those few words, Madam Deputy Speaker, I therefore wish everyone a Merry Christmas and an enjoyable and prosperous New Year.
Thank you very much. Honourable Member, Leader of the Opposition.
I join with the Honourable Member for St. Michael South East, only to extend the best wishes for the season to you, ma'am, to all who cared to come here today, to all the staff of this Parliament, to all Barbadians who listen to these debates here and overseas. And in spite of the darkness that looms, to ask everyone here and in this country to be a light in their dark surroundings, and to hope that we will come back, God willing, in January to a country that may have benefited from that light
that illumines the darkness that has engulfed us for much of the year. But this is not a political discourse. This is a sincere wish for peace. And when we ask for peace, we ask also for love, because that is the essence of the birth of the greatest man who walked this earth. And I'm a Christian, and those are the views to which I subscribe. So, Your Honor, I thank you. I thank you personally for supervising and conducting the affairs of this Parliament in the past few weeks. I thank you for that. On behalf of the Democratic Labour Party as well, I must express gratitude to you for allowing me to speak in here, to exercise my right of freedom of speech. And on behalf of all Barbadians who, in considerable numbers, do not support the government, I express gratitude to you as well for your conduct of these parliamentary debates and for the fact, not the miracle, the fact that I have been allowed to speak in here and to speak with freedom. Your Honor, Merry Christmas, and I'm obliged to you.
Honourable members, I wish to also express my gratitude to you, Madam Leader of Government's Business, and you, the Leader of the Opposition, and indeed all the other distinguished members of Parliament who have been here day in and day out whenever we meet to be able to discuss the business of the people of Barbados. I want to also express my gratitude to the members of staff here at this Parliament for their guidance and support in every avenue through which I have gone within the last few weeks. I also wish to remember in our prayers His Honor, the substantive Speaker of this chamber, who is recuperating well, and therefore let us remember him in our prayers. And I join with you, Madam Leader of Government's Business, in relation to the sympathy that has been extended to the former Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and her 2 children, and we know that that is not an easy task. However, I trust that God will continue to bless the family who remain and to be able to bring some elements of comfort to them. And finally, I wish to thank all you other distinguished members here, members and colleagues, for your kind support and guidance as I've been stepping through like a baby that's now learning to walk in this position. However, the dignity of this chamber has been upheld as compared with times before when we saw it under another administration. There were so many challenges. But let us all continue to work together, trusting and praying that the examples we set here will be followed by those on the outside, because the eyes and the ears are on us. I want to thank you, sir, Leader of the Opposition, for your efforts. I know it has not been easy for you or for us at times. However, we are here to work together to do the government's business, and therefore let us continue in the new year to be able to work assiduously to develop those policies and programs that have been extended to the people of Barbados, and indeed some people in the region. They listen to us and they emulate some of what we do because we are all serving as leaders in our various countries and institutions. I pray that this Christmas will be a safe and blessed one for all of us. We know that there are many challenges on the road when it comes to drivers, accidents, and other things that are happening that are not the norm. However, let us pray for our youth, for the elderly, for the seniors, for those who are disadvantaged, those who are shut-ins in the district hospitals and in other places and homes, because at the end of the day, we are one people, one nation, and we need to lend our support to them. On behalf of my family, on behalf of your families as well, I extend to all Barbadians God's speed, all his blessings as we go through the Christmas season, and pray that we too will be able to continue to do this valiant task that has been assigned to us, so that at the end of it all, we can achieve the goals and all the plans and the projects. At the end of the day, they are for the empowerment of Barbadians. Mr. Clerk and team, thank you too for your guidance and support in every respect. We ask God's blessings on you and your family as well. Merry Christmas to all of you. Merry Christmas to the people of Barbados, the people of the Caribbean, and indeed the people of the world. Thank you very much, and do have a safe and blessed time. God bless you all again. Thank you. I did not remember to say specifically our security downstairs and the police officers and others and other general Barbadians who meet us and say, we're praying for you because we know you have arduous tasks. I thank all of them for their guidance and their support. And at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, the catering staff, yes, they're included in the staff. Yes, please. And they've been looking after us very well over the past few years, and we want to thank them sincerely for the sacrifices. I want now for all of us, please, to stand and pay that 1 minute's silence in recognition of the outstanding contribution that was made by the Minister of Education in Trinidad, and indeed her children who perished with her, and all Barbadians who will have suffered and died as a result of whatever incidents occurred that led to their deaths. May we continue to work together as a people to make a difference. Let us have that moment. The souls of the righteous.
Madam. Okay. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I therefore beg to move that this House be adjourned until Tuesday, the 7th of January at 10 a.m.
The question is that this Honourable Chamber now be adjourned until Tuesday, January the 7th, 2025 at 10 a.m. All other honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the House have it. Thank you for your kindness.